So before we actually dive into um, the tips and tricks, I have a question for you all. What is it that you think will make any session engaging? What are what is what are the different elements that will make a session interesting? When participants have fun, yes. Icebreakers, activities, and quizzes, yes. What are the emotions that games, definitely. What are the emotions that would help or that would make a session interesting if you try to tap into these emotions? Any thoughts on that? Hands-on activities, yes. Inducing curiosity, lovely. So you've kind of given away all most of these pointers that I had to begin with. So there's love, wonder that needs to be there. There needs to be some hands-on activities, hands-on discovery that the kids can do. There has to be a sense of curiosity and amazement that they get out of it. Or and also some way of tapping into their creativity and using as much of sensory activities that so that kind of trying kind of a different mix of different things for different age groups, different kind of groups will give us a sense of what and how we can design, but having these a couple of things as the basis of it. So this is something that I will share with you later as well, but we'll just quickly run through this. Based on what age group you're working with, the way that they process certain things, the way that they engage with something is slightly different. And in that way, trying to kind of make the most of this, how do you do it? For maybe for a group that's really young, where they are just getting to starting to understand what's happening around them, where they are just starting to getting to understand writing or listening, all of that. Maybe just letting them explore, just being, letting them be outdoors and letting them play in the mud or touch plants and just explore would be something that they'll really enjoy, but also a way that they'll be able to connect with uh, nature. So, like things like stories, songs, play, art, and craft, these are things that will really work out for a really young age group. But imagine once the kids grow, or you're engaging with a older group, different things kind of keep adding to this. So first, for the youngest group, you will want to just stick to wonder, love, fun in nature, and all of that. But as you grow, as the groups kind of you engage with have an older age, you'll try and add different layers to it. There'll be a sense of questioning and observe more kind of um, structured observations that would come into play. There'll be a lot of group activities or games that you would want to play with them. Or I like a group where there's like initially would not want to talk about what's happening wrong in nature, like climate change and global warming, and all of this is something that might make a kid really kind of can put off a kid and their curiosity and be like, okay, if everything's bad, why do I need to learn about it? Why do I need to engage with it? So initially trying to keep away from these aspects, but later on, like maybe a 14-year-old has a better understanding of such things. They'll have a more reasonable way of looking at it, because by then probably you have built they have observed and kind of build a sense of what's happening. So then maybe bringing in these aspects and more of action based things will really help. So first, what are the different kind of outdoor activities or outdoor explorations you can think of? What are different outdoor activities that you have possibly done with a group of kids, or you've seen or would like to do? Active listening, sensory play, nature walk. Anything else? Okay. Observing new things. Yes. So there are multiple ways in an outdoor space depending on what your intent is and what your space or the space available kind of offers. So there can be bird walks, you can try doing nature journaling, you can try playing some outdoor games, or there can be some activities as well. And in today's session, we'll try and kind of explore some of these ideas on how we can make best use of it. So just imagine if you are on a bird walk and you're really new to birds. And if someone just keeps pointing at some bird and keeps telling you the bird name, does it feel interesting? Just knowing the bird name, does that feel interesting? No, right? You would as would you again go back and watch birds if you just knew the bird name and you didn't also probably have a chance to observe that bird? No, having more information is better. That's very true. The more more information is better, yes. But how do we convey more information in a way that it doesn't feel like another classroom textbook kind of a lecture? It has to be fun. It has to be interactive. So how do we do that? So you can either talk about different fun facts. If you're seeing a bird, talking about different fun facts and trying to uh, bring in, like, making the kids observe certain characters. If you're seeing a bird and instead of telling them, oh, this, if you're seeing a kingfisher, for an example, telling them, oh, kingfisher would eat this, it will live here and there. It's like just giving them information, right? Instead of making them think, instead of making them question. In a situation like that, what you would want to probably do is you ask them questions instead, which will kind of encourage them to observe better. Imagine, like, there are these questions that are there, like, what do you think the bird that we are seeing eats? If you're near a lake, or if you're near a water body, or in a forest, there are different questions that you can ask them that can either lead them to thinking about what the bird is eating, what the bird behavior could be, or some physical characteristics of birds. Or sometimes you don't see a bird and someone's also talking about by making sound of the bird and showing practically. Yes, so focusing on a bird call. Sometimes you don't see a bird, but you might listen to a lot of birds, which Bird sounds might be a little tricky when the group is very new to birds, but it might be something very interesting for a group of kids, a group of children who already know a little bit more about birds, because then that brings in a little bit of more challenge that they would like. Initially, you would want it to be all awe and wonder, but then as they know more about birds, they'll want some bit of challenge. So now that you're talking about observing birds and questioning about birds to learn more about them, what would be a certain where would you see best birds? Would it be near a lake or would it be in a forest? Where do you think it is easier to watch birds, observe birds? Would it be lakes or would it be forest? Or what any by lake I would mean any water body basically. So we have most of you saying lakes and water body. Why do you think that is the case? Why would birds be easier to spot near water bodies than in forest? Single spot, many species. Okay. Any other answers? Any other thoughts to that? Open habitat, easy visibility. Yes, easy to observe and note behaviors without hindrance. Yes, very true. And often a lot of water birds are large, so they're easy to be seen. Unlike forest birds, which might be smaller and lot more active, you'll it is difficult to spot them in the forest canopy. They'll be moving from one branch to another. While with water birds, they'll be quite often in a spot where they don't move quite far. So it's easier to, if you want to do observation based activities or anything, it is easier to see them, observe them for a very long time. Both because of their size and that it's a certain area only where they can move, so they'll not go far away. So, yes, if you do have access to water bodies around you, that would be a really good place to start with when it comes to getting kids introduced to birds. Though, if you don't, then you can use sound based activities or other sensory activities that can help you just, even if you don't see birds, just get the kids the sense of engaging with birds, learning more about birds, but through different senses. Another thing would be if you are seeing birds, instead of telling them the bird name, you can either discuss the regional names. Often regional names are quite descriptive and it kind of can start a really nice conversation. Or you can tell them to come up with their own new name for that bird without you telling them what the actual bird name is. Some of you might know this bird, some of you don't. So, do you want to give it a try and see what this bird would be called? What would you like to name this bird? Try try naming this bird. Think, what would you, if you didn't know this bird's name, what would you name it? Give it give it an okay, red nosed duck. Okay, try giving it a new name. Eagle duck because of its color. Interesting. Yellow spot bill marble duck. Okay. Leopard duck. Oh, that's so close. So this is cheetah bird is one of the names that a kid is given to this during one of a bird walk because of the spots. So yeah, leopard, swing duck. Why do you call it a swing duck? Any particular reason? These other names were quite, I could figure out why, but this one seems quite out of the box, quite interesting. Okay, but also kids can come up with really amazing names. They can, some names can be very obvious, some names can be v- very obscure, like cheetah bird or a leopard bird, where you don't really think of looking at these spots in a way, but one would see the bill, which is very prominent. So it's quite interesting how certain people, like you will get like 10, if you're doing a walk with 10 different 10 kids, a group of 10 kids, each of them can possibly have a different name, and they'll be also creative. And if I ask you the regional name of it, what is it called in where you are from, or in your in your regional language? What is this bird called? Any idea? Do you know what this bird's called in any other regional language? So in Marathi, it is called Haldi Kumkum, which is referring to the reddish orange spot and the yellow spot. So, like the haldi kumkum that we apply, it is referring to that. So, you can kind of have conversations around that as well when you're talking, uh, when you're doing bird walks without actually giving away the bird name. So, one of the kids had in another walk named this bird a chopstick. Any guesses why? Why do you think they named this bird chopstick? Any guesses? It's Beak. Yes. So while we were watching birds, and we saw this bird trying to forage, trying to look for food, and the way the beak moved, the kid went like, "Oh, this looks like chopsticks," and the movement is just like it when I'm trying to pick up food. So they've created this association and named this bird chopsticks. If you had to name this bird, what would you have named it? It's a challenge for all the adults here to try and beat this name, because this is one of my favorite names. It's so creative and so innovative, but gives a sense of some behavior that this bird shows. So it's like a challenge I like to give adults on trying to uh, surpass this name. No, I don't see anyone trying to name this bird other than, yeah. Any guesses? Any name that you think would be more appropriate for it? Silver and bronze bird. Yes. Look at the beautiful sheen that the bird has. Sharing killer. Wow. Needle bird. Shiny feathered bird. Needlehead. Wow. Now we have a lot of names coming in. Fuzzy long-billed bird. Yes, there's some fuzziness that you see around its neck. Quite interesting. What is this bird called in your regional language, or your a language that you know of, other than English? What do you know what this bird's called? Okay. Any other? name. Do you know what it is called? Yeah, it is an Indian white-eye, but it is, I'm trying, that's the English name, but I'm asking for any regional names that you know of this bird. In Hindi, it's called as Chashmewala, and it is kind of indicating towards the white ring that the bird has. So even regional names can be very descriptive, and you can always uh, m- it is like giving new names to the birds as if trying looking at them, but these names are already there. So these are some things that you can get younger kids or kids that are very new to birds. Definitely try and do to get them to observe better. The more they observe, the more involved one will be when they are kind of watching birds. So without observation, it just feels like a lecture but outdoors. So to get them involved, observations and kind of making observation a game as well would be a way of getting them engaged um, and retaining the information better. And as if you're engaging with older kids, bringing in then aspects about nature journaling and making it easy in a way that sometimes drawing and journaling can feel very daunting or intimidating. But let's start small, let's start easy. These are some prompts that we've used, and you've kind of assuring the audience saying they don't really have to be really amazing artists, but just being able to note down or um, sketch just things enough to make them remember what they are seeing or observing. So these are the three prompts that you can use to get them to dive deeper into what um their nature observations would otherwise be. And you can also, if you don't have uh, the basic traditional art and art supplies, you can always try and use leaves or seeds or different materials from nature to make bird art. Like just uh, you can see here some lovely birds have been made out of leaves and coconut shells or seeds. So you don't also need art supplies sometimes if you can just guide them to do something like this. Or you can play games. There are different outdoor games that have been mentioned in the handbook for bird educators. I'll share the link of it later through an email. But there are other games like the bird survivor game that takes you through the life cycle of a bird, while you learn about the different challenges, different things that the bird has to go through to kind of survive. So these games can come really handy to for you to make the sessions interactive while getting some break. So in the beginning, someone had mentioned icebreakers and energizers and games and things can make sessions interesting. Yes, because imagine if you keep watching birds for continuously, say, an hour and a half, what it would just become after a point you will keep probably seeing similar birds. There'll be not much to talk about them, and it can become monotonous. Instead, you can start off with an icebreaker. You can do some initial activity, getting to know the group that you are with. Then you can watch birds for some more time, say 20-30 minutes. Then take a break, do some activity, some game, some drawing, some interaction, and then watch birds again for another 20-30 minutes, and then end with a game or and conclude. That way you have the energy of the kids kind of, it doesn't dip. You maintain the energy if you're trying to do different kind of activities, and you can also cover a lot of different topics this way. And as for a really older group which also knows birds at this point, who already know birds, you can engage them with making like documenting things, or either it can be through a sheet like this where they are doing taking like bird attendance, or it can be through these citizen science initiatives and apps like eBird. You can get them to organize bird festivals or learn more about, like, dive deeper into bird behaviors and learn more about what's happening around birds through news or any other uh, media. So with older, as or the group gets older, and your engagement with them has to change, but remember, even with an older age group, it is essential that you keep the wonder or curiosity, all of this yet there. You cannot eliminate that from your engagements, because otherwise it just becomes slightly boring. Because the more information you give, the more heavier the sessions will become, and you have to lighten it up some way. And you can do that in various different ways. So, especially in indoor interactions, what happens is you have limited resources. You have it becomes very difficult to keep the attention of the group that you are interacting with. So, any ideas on how you have done it, or you think it will work out, where if you have to make an indoor interaction interactive, what would you do? Polls, quizzes, okay. Coloring, yes. Any other ideas? What what can you do if you are indoors, you're doing an indoor engagement? Take some feathers and ask the kids to guess the bird. That's really nice. Bringing in some element of outdoors in an indoor interaction. Lovely. Movement games, yes. That's another. Play bingo. So names of the bird on the sheet, and call out the description of the bird, and they have to identify. Oh, that's quite an interesting way of doing that. So a version of bingo that early bird has, it kind of focuses. It's a little opposite of what you mentioned, Vrinda. It shows different. It kind of in the grid has um, some color indications or some behavioral indications about birds. And as in when we are going on a bird walk, whenever you see a colorful bird, or a bird with a long tail, or a bird feeding, or a bird perching on a wire, you kind of strike off those boxes. So, yeah, making the fun of birds and knowing about it. Yes. Playing bird sounds. Yes. So, bringing in some element of outdoors can also be quite engaging. But imagine you are to give a talk about birds. So I'll just run you through some quick uh, insights on how you can possibly structure the session. You will have to introduce what birds are, especially to a group that doesn't know birds. If I had to ask you, how would you describe a bird? What would it be? How would you describe a bird? If someone asks you, what is a bird? How would you answer that? Okay, someone says feathers, feathers, beak, wings. Wow, flying wonders, chirpy animals, living beings with flight. Yes, or living beings which fly. Yeah, so there are, okay, flying dinos. Lovely. So yeah, there are quite different ways in which you can describe birds, but also one way that I really like to introduce birds is playing fact or fiction. So in this game, what you do is you gather all the kids in the center and designate either one side that they uh, say the right side to where they are standing is fact and the left side is fiction. You say out statements like all birds have feathers or all birds fly. Some statement that kind of gives either is a fact or a fiction. Either it is true or false. And through this activity and through this game, you can actually introduce ideas like, okay, feathers, there are no birds that don't have feathers. All birds will have feathers, but there are no other animals in that you can think of which have feathers. So just the idea that feathers are quite unique to birds, or there are flightlet birds as well. Even though we might think of birds, the first thing that comes to our mind is flight, them flying. It is quite a thing that there are flightless birds as well. So, not all birds fly. So, bringing out information like these through a game can make the session engaging. It's not just then you speaking, but them also thinking about it, kind of uh, going back into what they already know about birds and trying to see where they can place it with the information and picking a side and then kind of realizing whether what they thought was right or wrong. And so, yes, so one of the things you have to, what would excite you about birds? Like, one thing that I always kind of vouch by is when as educators we sound excited, we sound like we like birds and what we like about birds. If we kind of sound very excited about it, the kids would also kind of be like, okay, what is it that is making this person so excited about birds? Let me also kind of pay attention and see if I like them as much. So, having that excitement, showing that excitement and passion that you have around birds in nature can be really, really uh, something that would work out phenomenally when you're doing sessions like these. So, there are some things that are mentioned here that can generally excite people about birds. It's their flight, their color, their aesthetic, the beauty, it's how they build nests, or migration. Is there anything else that's not mentioned here that you find fascinating about birds? You can keep your answers you can keep sending your answers in the group in the chat, but while you, yes, their colors and are something that can catch your eye, that can make you, how one bird can give different calls, their calls are being different, yes. So there are these things that are there, but then there are other things about you can bring out through stories as well. So there are so many of these folklores and different uh, fables that we know of, that include bird, that often can kind of indicate towards what that bird behavior could be. So trying to pick out certain stories that way that can help you to highlight certain bird behaviors can be a way to go about it as well. But imagine now you're doing a session on what birds eat. You have to do this session. You've been invited to a school and you've been told you have to do this session for, say, a fifth grader or a fourth grader or even younger, and then a session for ninth graders around the same topic. What do birds eat? Would you do the same kind of activities with them? Would you have the same presentation or the same structure across the two groups? What do you think? No. Yeah, because the way, if you talk to the younger, like say a third or a fourth grader, like you would talk to a ninth grader, the fourth grader is not gonna understand anything because it would be maybe too technical for them. Things that they don't understand, they might not have the vocabulary as well, and then the sense of processing that information too would be not there in younger group. But imagine, it might just seem like, okay, I can probably do what I'm doing with a fourth grader, with a ninth grader. It's just going to be fun, right? But if it's too easy for a ninth grader also, they'll lose interest. They'll be distracted because it's like, this is too easy. I already know it. So why do I listen to it, or why do I pay attention? So there has to be a certain difference in how we structure based on different age groups. So with younger kids, best way would be having some activity. So if I have to do a session, I'll probably first introduce them to the idea that different birds eat different food and the different diversity uh, of food that birds can eat. Because sometimes when we think of birds, we might miss out on certain aspects. Like we might have seen a bird, or the kids might have seen a bird feeding on nectar, but it might not come to them immediately because it's not something that we often talk about. If we ask a question, what do birds eat? The most common answers we might get is uh, maybe small animals, insects, and fruits and seeds. But then there are other like frogs and snakes, and these things kind of get missed out. Or the idea that some birds scavenge, so they might eat dead animals, or also eat uh, garbage or waste. So these things kind of establishing that different birds would eat different kind of food, and then kind of bringing in the activity. Try solving this. Match the bill to the food. What would the bird at the place one eat? It is a matching game. So try matching the bill, the beak, to the food. Any answers? Any guesses? Any attempts? Okay, someone says one will eat H. Yes, Vrinda. Hmm. There are some clues that are there in the subs of the images. So try to take those cues. So 2 is S. Okay. 4 is B. What's B? Okay. 4 and B. Okay. So 4, if you see, it is a very thin, long beak. Do you think it can eat a fish? It will actually not eat fish because look at its beak, right? It is so thin and long. It will eat insects. It's again an insect eating bird, but it is this particular one is more of an aquatic insects in um, this kind of a beak where it is probing in the sense it will be using its beak to prod into mud or soil or sand to find for food. So in this activity, is it are we just now focusing on a certain bird and what they eat, or there's some other element as well? Are we also kind of introducing some other aspect in here other than food and birds? Anything about specifically about birds that we now talked about? Habitat, okay. Beak shape, yes. So often when you talk about food, beak shapes and the different kinds of beak adaptation play a very important role, and you can bring that aspect for a very like 4 to 6 year old. Just telling kind of them matching this game can be enough of an intellectual stimuli for them, but for a 9 to 10 year old or a 9 year old 6 to 9 year old, you might want to bring in this aspect about beak adaptation, beak shapes, in that kind of influencing what they eat, or them based on what they're eating, their beak shapes kind of develop, or based on what their beak shape is, they kind of can eat only certain uh, kind of food. So there's this one very interesting activity that I recently came across to understand how different beak shapes are associated with different kind of food one can eat. So you have like a straw, you have like a chopstick, and you have like a hard kind of a nutcracker of sorts, and you have placed these different things, and then there's some uh, different kind of food that is there. And then the idea is again a matching game, but with a with physical element, where you have to imagine these equipment are kind of bird beaks, and that's how their beaks are actually functioning. So for a sunbird, or like a bird that is having nectar, their beak would function like a straw, or for a grain or a nut eater, it will act like a nutcracker. So things like that, even you can this matching game can have a physical version of it as well. But when it comes to older audience, if you have to do the same thing with them, just doing this matching game is not gonna kind of match their intellectual capabilities. So have asking them questions, making them think and reason, bringing in reasoning would be an important element. So imagine, do birds have teeth? I'm asking this question to you. Do birds have teeth? Are there? Do birds have teeth? No. Okay. What is the function of teeth? How do we use teeth? How is it helping us? We have teeth, and how are our teeth helping us? To grind the food, for cutting, yes. So then if birds don't have teeth, how are they, what happens to their food? If the function of teeth is to chew, to break down, to grind, if then birds don't have teeth, what are they doing with their food? Do they chew? Do they swallow? What do they do? Or imagine if we didn't have teeth and we are eating, what would you do? Yeah, their digestive system is different. They use their beak to chop. Yes, sometimes, yes.
They can gulp it.
Yes, they gulp it as well. So often birds will just gulp it. Imagine if you had to just gulp like a piece of roti without chewing it. What do you think will happen? Would it get digested properly in our system? No, right? We'll fear indigestion, we'll fear having stomach ache and not um like just every time we have been told ki you have to chew 32 times for your food to be properly digested. Otherwise, we'll have stomach ache and indigestion. But what's happening to the birds then? Are they kind of living their life through indigestion? No. Like some of you have already said that they have a different way in which their digestive system works. Do you know what they have that helps them grind their food? They don't have teeth, but they have something that does help them grind food. Do you know what that is? Hmm. So, there is, apart from the part of the stomach that would have enzymes to digest food, they have something called as a gizzard. So this is like muscular teeth that birds have. So it's an organ just before their stomach. It's like a stomach that grinds food for them using muscular teeth. They don't have teeth in their beak, but have something similar that functions similarly around their stomach. So even though the kind of foods that we eat or the birds eat might be similar, there might be some similarities, but there's so much difference. And that's what you can probably bring out when you're talking about when you're talking about food and the kind of food and how here once you've established the different kind of foods that you can start with what you started with for the younger age group, but you will have to add this element of thinking, reasoning, questioning to make it appropriate for an older group, an older audience. And yes, like I was saying, it is very, very necessary that our sessions are interactive, and indoor sessions are really tricky. And we need to put in a lot more effort to make them engaging because it just closed walls and you're talking about something that you don't necessarily see around. And hence, activities come to an rescue. So I have an activity for you. Either if you have access to a pen and a paper, you can use that, or you can use the chat box to go about it. But yes, here, if you want to, someone did mention that talking about calls and bird calls can be something that we can do indoors, where we have more liberty of playing these calls. We might not have that during an outdoor session, but in an indoor session, we can play multiple calls. We can talk about them because we are not will not be able to see the bird, but at least listen to them. And bird calls can be really, really intimidating and difficult, even for people who watch birds. It can be something that is very difficult to remember or kind of learn. It will take time. So, how do you introduce that? How do you make it easy for the kids to understand? You can make it into, again, make it into a game or a quiz. You can talk about initially, you might not want to talk about what bird it belongs to. It's not identifying the bird by the call, but trying to understand how the call is sounding. How is it sweet? Is it harsh? Is it slow? How is it? Just to try and understand, describe the call can be a really good way to start. And also trying to introduce kids to the different kind of sounds and the kind of like if it is a one note, two note, three note, that can be something that can be added as a layer based on what age group and what kind of a understanding of birds do the audience come from. So I'll play a call and you have to describe how, what do you hear? How do you hear this call? What does it sound like? Is it sounding like if it reminds you of something, or the type of a call that you feel it is? Describe as much as you can. It's not about not identifying the bird by the call, but understanding the call itself. Are you all able to hear the call? Okay, so how would you describe this call? Neighing of reminds you of a horse. Shrill, yes. Any other adjectives, any other way that you want to describe this call? Does it sound like a scream? Does it remind you of something? Is there anything else that you want to talk about? It's shrill vibrations, high pitched whistle. Okay. Calling out to someone. Okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah. So see, each one of us will hear it differently, or describe it differently. Screaming for help. Yeah, it does sound like a scream. It does sound like a neighing of a horse. It does remind a lot of people of horse or a creaking door. Okay, that's really a new way that I've heard someone describe this call. Like a chalk. Oh, that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Like a chalk shrill on a blackboard. Yeah. A flute sound. That's quite pleasant. Is this call very pleasant to our ear? I don't find it really pleasant. Like, yes, it is a bird call, but compared to a lot of other bird calls, which are more whistle based, this doesn't sound very uh, pleasing or comforting. It is often used in horror movies and like a very suspense background. It gives that feel to most of us. So you can play such calls and you can get them to describe different calls. Or you can, if your audience knows some bit of birds, you can then show them different, you can talk about different birds, you can make them hear their calls and then make it into a quiz. So let's do a quiz. I have some few questions for all of you. You have to, I'll play a call and you have to choose from the option what does this bird, which bird is it? I'm starting with a very easy one. Oh, this is, most of you got this the answer right. Yes, it is the crow. It is the house crow. Then what bird is this?
Parakeet. Parakeet.
Yes, it is a parakeet. And the last one.
Pigeon.
Yes, it is a pigeon. So this you can later talk about how different birds have different kind of calls. Some birds have very short calls, some have very long calls, some repeat a certain call. There are different kinds of calls. What are the different reasons why a bird would call? What are the different reasons why a bird would call? Is there only one for food, for territorial, or for territorial things, or for courtship, for help, for alarm? Yes, so there are quite a lot of different reasons why birds call. And there are bird songs as well that are usually around courtship, and you can bring these ideas based on the kind of audience that you're engaging with. Once they know a little bit more about bird calls, you can then talk about the different kinds of calls, their reasons, and go dive deeper into this. And then, yes, you can play games. Games can be never boring. There can be games that you can play indoors. If you have some space, you can move around and play. You can a lot of I can We did a session on games uh, on last Saturday, so you can go back and listen to that for more insights on it. I'll not go deeper into this, but games, always you can have games that have no learning output, where they're not really learning but just you're bringing hyping the energy. But there can be games that can have a learning outcome. You can plan games in a way where, based on what topic you are engaging with, what topic you are covering, you can talk about, you can make them play a certain game. And then being creative, getting them to create something, tapping into their creativity. It's something that you can do outdoors as well, but indoors it's a really nice opportunity to do it. Where one of my favorite things to do is getting them to pick certain bird, these flashcards, like pick three cards and combine the bird in a way that they create a new bird of their own. And then you get to decide its habitat, you get to decide what the bird eats, you get to decide how it looks, what it's called, all of it. It's like if you were given an opportunity to create a bird from scratch, this is what they'll come up with. So it is kind of making them imagine, making them getting them to be creative, but also you will talk about eventually about the bird habitat, the bird diet, and characteristics as well. So it's like making them do something. Later on, you can, depending on if it's just a younger audience, then you can stick with just drawing. With an older audience, you can go beyond with the conversation and talk about, okay, why is it living in this habitat? Is it their feet, or is it their color? Is it the way they have certain body features? Or why is it eating something? Is it the certain kind of a beak? And all of these things can be done when you are differently. It can be done differently based on what audience you're working with. And there are a lot more such activities that you can do indoors, some art based, some craft. Again, in the handbook, and I'll share, you can get the physical copy as well, or there is a e version of it that I'll share the link to. So I have another activity for all of you. Here you can use your, if you have access to a pen and paper, you can do that, or you can use the chat box. So get started with, choose a bird name. Choose a bird and write the bird name in the first line. Like, I'll give you an example using a tree. The tree that I choose is an Indian laburnum. So in the first line, I'll write Indian laburnum. Don't send that, if you're using the Zoom chat, don't send out your bird names in the chat right now. Just keep editing the same messages as we go ahead based on what prompts are to come. Once you have chosen the bird name, in the next line, not in the same line, in the next line, write 2 words that describe your bird, like adjectives. For me, if I'm saying an Indian laburnum, it is a tree. For that, I'll say beautiful and blooming. No, beautiful and yellow is what I would uh, describe it. So you can describe your bird in 2 words in the next line. Once you've done that, now you have to, in the third line, you have to mention 3 words that describe what the bird does, like a bird behavior. 3 words that describe the bird behavior. For the tree, I would say blooming, growing, and what else? Blooming, growing, and standing. That's the 3 action words, 3 verbs that I'm using to describe my tree. You can do that for your bird in the third line. Then in the fourth line, you have to describe how you feel about the bird. When you look at it, it can be a 4-word phrase, it can be a 4-word expression, a 4-word sentence. For me, I would say it looks peaceful. It's like it is it looks peaceful to me when I look at the tree. So that's what I'll write there. An expression, preferably 4 words, not longer than that, but it's okay if it's plus minus 1 word. And in the last line, you replace your bird name with something synonymous. Like I'll replace Indian laburnum with golden shower. So try doing that with the bird name that you have. Once you've done that, would anyone like to share what they have written? Okay, I see some names some things coming in. Okay, so now if uh, you read it in continuously, whatever you've written, whatever words you've written, if you read it continuously, do you feel like it sounds a little poetic? It sounds like a small poem, does it? If you read it in a certain way, does it sound like a poetry? Does it sound like a small poem? Yeah, so imagine it is this kind of writing is a type of a poem. And imagine if I started with telling you, write a poem. Would any one of you have written it? I don't think so. Apart from people who really enjoy writing poems, would everyone have enjoyed it, or probably had uh, so instantly come up with something? Sometimes you might just sit and think about it and might write a poem. Some might just feel hesitant to write it because it just feels very intimidating and daunting. So just taking the children through this exercise, you can get them to write something without the pressure of writing a poem. Because in general, it might be something that people might step away from if you just tell them write a poem. So that's a way that you can um, get them to do something like a creative writing aspect as well, or bringing in a sense of visual delight. Let's watch a video and then move further.
Ever since the dawn of humanity, birds have fascinated us. Bright and elegant, their splendor fills the skies. We share our planet with over 10,000 species of birds. Some fly long distances, like the Arctic tern, which travels between the North and South poles every year. Some fly really high, like the bar-headed goose, which reaches an altitude of 6,000 meters while crossing the mighty Himalaya. Others spend their lives on the ground and never fly at all. Some birds are really small. They weigh as little as a sheet of paper and are only as big as the eye of the largest bird, the ostrich, which weighs over 100 kilograms. Now imagine the gigantic elephant bird from Madagascar, which easily weighed more than 3 ostriches but has sadly gone extinct. There's a lot to learn from birds because nature has designed them with such precision. Early gliding machines were influenced by the shape of their wings. Kingfishers and owls inspired the design of bullet trains with their beaks and feathers. The world looks different once we start noticing the birds around us. From polar ice caps to lush rainforests, from the highest mountains to arid deserts, to our cities and towns and lakes and farmlands. They enrich our lives with their beautiful colors, enchanting songs, and their fascinating behavior. Watching birds can bring great joy to our everyday lives. And all we need to do is look around.
Yeah, so you can screen videos. This particular video is from one of the courses that we launched last year. You can have, sign up for this course and screen these videos, or there are a lot more other um, videos that kind of capture your attention, cap given some bit of information, but the visuals are so amazing that you don't feel like looking away. You want to listen, you want to kind of see what all it's talking about. So visual, bringing in visual element, that's quite something that you can do indoors. And based on the videos, you can do quizzes, you can have interactions. Um, so yeah, that's something. And then, like, that's something that you can do, and something trying to bring in innovative approaches. One of uh, like icebreakers, both indoors and outdoors. There'll be different kind of icebreakers that you would do based on the settings that like whether you are indoor or whether you're outdoor. There'll be different kind of activities that you can do. But there's this one educator who had shared this experience with us, that they planned a um, bird walk, nature walk, and they are in Delhi, and it was a really cold morning, and everyone see so to get that energy to kick off the session at a very high note, they created an icebreaker that makes the parent child pair move around, do some action that gets them energized. They used the flashcards, and behind each flashcard, they had notes saying the little grip will, so the little grip, jump on your parents' back and go for a swim. Or jungle babbler, for jungle babbler, it was like one stands guard while the other feeds. Or for a woodpecker, peck on the wood, peck on the tree trunk, uh, some 500 times a second, and things like that, which is getting them to do some energetic activity while also understanding some behavior, peculiar behavior of that bird. Because grips, the chicks of the grips kind of swim around with by being on back of their parent. Or jungle babblers have this where one bird will guard while others are feeding, and then they'll switch places. So things like these very peculiar behaviors, you kind of learn about them, but also it's serving the purpose of energizing the group before you get started with the session. Or if you are doing an indoor session and especially with older audience, this might really work where you're building connections with their science curriculum, or some more intellectual stimuli, giving them that by connecting some scientific facts with what you see in a bird. So here, this example, this another educator that we know shared that she, being a physics teacher, uses bird quite often uses bird examples to convey certain physical theories or physical ideas. And here they are talking about pressure and how jacanas are able to walk on floating vegetation. So they're talking about the long distribution of weight through the long toes, and uh, the surface tension basically helping the leaves to float, and all of these different concepts, the scientific concepts that they are talking comes into play. And one other thing, if you are doing long-term engagement with the kids, having you can have like an I wonder board where kids can come up and put up their questions, and you can decide on a day where you can sit and talk with them, or you can find answers to that, or you can have a I wonder board even for one session, and where you collect different kind of questions that they have, the kids have, and try to address as many by kind of collectively finding an answer. So there are some, often when we are doing these interactions, we encounter with certain difficult situations. Like in this one case, what if you have in a group that you're engaging with, there's one kid that knows it all, is keeps rattling off, keeps speaking out loud bird names. They can be either right or wrong, but it is disturbing the um, group. It is disturbing the learning of other kids. How do you deal with a situation like this? What would you do if you were in a situation like this where there's one kid that is being a little disruptive by knowing it all, and whatever they know may be right or wrong? How would you deal with this situation? Any thoughts? Can possibly do. Yeah, so if you are in this situation that's shown on the screen, what is it that you would do? Okay. How would you engage a kid? Make the know it all kid your assistant for the session. Yes, that tends to often help, giving them some bit of responsibility so that they feel that they are not, uh, they have more responsibility. So it is kind of uh, catering to what they want to do by calling off names or rattling off names aloud, is trying to get some attention to what they know, redirect their attention to observing what the bird is doing. Yes, that's a very good thing. Like they might be just rattling off names and not really knowing more about that bird. So you can direct them, redirect their attention to a different direction and getting them to observe more. That's wonderful. But one thing is there. If you realize or if you know that they are saying the wrong thing, just calling them off that, hey, what you're saying is wrong, just don't uh, shout out names like that. That might really discourage the kid. We don't really want to do that as well while trying to uh, settle them and make the uh, bird walk or the bird interaction or bird theme, whatever you event that you're doing, while you want to make it fulfilling for the other kids, you also have want to make it a point that you don't discourage this know-it-all kid as well. You don't have you can very you can appreciate that they know certain things, but and then eventually point out that, hey, what you all of that is not right. What you a part of it is right, or it can be, or tell them the right fact. Ki, this is what the bird does, or this is what they are doing, instead of just outright calling them off for their wrong answers. And in this second situation, what if you have to conduct a walk for visually impaired kids? What would be your action plan? What would be an action plan? What are the kind of activities that you might want to choose if you are interacting with a group of visually impaired kids? Kids with visual impairment, how would you interact with them? Use sound based activities, yes. Any other ideas? Feeling feathers, yes. So it's just one sensory element that's not there where you can't show them birds, but you can always bring in other senses to play, where you can touch, you can feel, you can hear, and you can have bird models, you can have feathers, you can kind of talk about textures, all of these different things that can yet make them feel that they're trying to try, they are kind of getting a sense of what the bird is. And in often we get these tricky questions, we get asked questions that we don't always have answers to, or they are just very tricky to even answer in the first place. How do you deal with them? Are there any tricky questions that you were asked and you didn't know how to react or answer? Any thoughts on that? Yes. Ask them what they think and then kind of dispel the myth. Okay. Any other thoughts? Provide facts. Yes. Are there any questions that you have been asked that were quite tricky and you didn't know how to handle them or have an answer to it. Stand, yes. Or it can also be getting an expert, you just having the sense of like just accepting that key, hey, I don't know the answer to this, let's find it out together. Getting involving in finding that answer with them, or getting an expert to talk about it, a person who might be better equipped at doing this, giving them their answers in a appropriate way. So yeah, quite a different. So these are some tips and tricks that we have collected over from different educators, from different. There's one question that's there. Okay. Had a tricky social issue opinion come up. A child was of an opinion that the local community shouldn't fish in the wetland. How did you counter that, Sunanda? Do you want to share your experience about how you dealt with that situation? You can also unmute and talk. Okay, I mentioned that they indirectly help fish and birds by being there. Okay. Any specific but couldn't fully expand on it. Okay. Sometimes it's okay to not have all answers and yet try and address them. Or if you have an opportunity to go back to them later and uh, kind of doing your own research, homework, and then being like, see, this is what I learned, and here, this is what I think the answer is. And get them, like someone said, get not really uh, dismissing what they feel or what their opinion is, but giving them more information to have a better informed uh, understanding and reasoning to what they're feeling. So that is kind of all the different things that I had to share with all of you. But since we have a couple more minutes, does anyone want to share their experiences where something that they've done out of the box or something interesting that you tried out and really worked with bringing out that excitement and even conveying the topic that you wanted to through your bird walks or through your bird like indoor engagement? Anyone, if you would like to share or if you have any questions for us, please feel free to ask. But one thing for sure, that whatever we do, like coming back to the first slide that I had shown, what makes, whenever structuring sessions, keeping in mind what makes and session engaging is wonder, or having different activities and games and getting them to think, question, all of that. So if anyone would like to share their experience, I would really like to know more and learn from you all as well. So please feel free to share. So in November, there's some what we want to celebrate with a lot of other organizations and individuals is a Young Birders Month. It is to celebrate Salim Ali's birthday and Children's Day, and do a month-long kind of a celebration of birds for young people. And You can, as educators, be part of it as well. You can organize your own bird events, either bird walks or indoor sessions, or some other kind of, you can do, you can be creative and do an event of your own. And I'll share something with all of you where you can submit your bird sessions on the website. And so I've shared some inside some instructions, and there are a lot of different events that are already being put up on the website. You can check the website and participate in those, or create or organize events of your own. So I hope we see a lot more of you participating in this Young Birders Month that's happening in November. At the end of after this session, we'll send you an email with all the different resources and other different sessions that you can watch to get more deeper kind of insights on what we discussed today. So yeah, look forward to that email, and it will be filled with a lot of resources. And yeah, I hope everyone really found something that they can take back and learn from experiences of other educators that we have tried to put together. Thank you everyone for joining.